working with mostly what we do is we work with communities here in
Mm-hmm.
Guatemala. So
Mm-hmm.
right now we work with 5 communities in the Pacific of Guatemala. And
Mm-hmm.
then we also work in 3 communities in the Atlantic. And
Mm-hmm.
at first, it was kind of weird because it was like, okay, I know I have to collect shark information in order to help them, but what kind of information? So it was kind of like a thesis for me, like just trying to find out what is it that you need to do in order to protect sharks? What is it that we need in the country in order to protect sharks? And of course, the first thing that came was, okay, what kind of sharks do we have here in Guatemala?
Mm-hmm.
And so we started working with one community in the Atlantic called Quetzalito, where I want Dave to come to because they have the most amazing deep water sharks, and it's like nonstop uh, new species coming out, and
It,
it just kills me.
it,
Like it kills me. Like
it,
how many species we've been able to record
mhm.
with the help of the fishers.
Yeah. And are the fishers? Is it mostly? Are they targeting these? Is this for local consumption or for export or what's the?
Mm,
Tell us about the
it's
fisheries.
it's art, it's the artisanal fishing fleet. So it's
Mm-hmm.
mostly people with very low income.
Mm-hmm.
So people with low income usually target fish that will be cheap in a way,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can eat. Just like rays as well. Rays are very cheap, so it's a very cheap protein that helps their consumption. But
Mm-hmm.
also in Lent here in Guatemala and most Central American and Latin countries, um, the price for shark goes up because they dry it up to make a thing that's called bacalao, which supposedly is not a dark meat, which is dark meat,
Mm. Yeah.
so that respect religious beliefs.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so most of the sharks, for example, in the Caribbean, when we first went to Quetzalito, we tried to make an approach, and the first thing that they said was they were like, "No, what you want is you want to stop all shark fishing, and
Right.
we know all
Yeah.
you NGOs that do this and that,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm. There's no trust.
yeah, no trust
Yeah.
whatsoever." Mostly also because fishers give a lot of information, and then it's never given back to them. You know.
Right. Yeah.
Eh,
Right. Yep.
which is something that we try to do in the foundation, always to give back the information of the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I went at some point to Mexico to try to figure out how am I going to win over these shark fishers that hate me.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody in Mexico, a good friend of mine, told me about an NGO that would give scholarships to shark fishers, and then shark fishers would share the data.
Right.
And then, it's a win
Mm-hmm.
win because then kids get education.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I tried that with the fishers, and I said, well, if you allow us to measure the sharks and take pictures and everything, what we can do for you is we can provide scholarships for your children.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. It worked. And then, unfortunately, here in Guatemala, that area does not have much education provided for them.
Mm-hmm.
The secondary school that they can go to, like high school, it's about an hour and a half away from them. So there were a lot of teenagers that had absolutely nothing to do all day, all
Mm-hmm.
day, basically just Saturdays and Sundays. So we gave them that scholarship, and to the little children, we gave them their books, which helped the
Right.
families.
Yeah.
Um, and we
So,
saw
so
it.
the scholarships, what would they do with the scholarships? So you would educate them on the work that you do?
like the work that the foundation was doing, or was it
N-
in just general education in itself?
just general education, just general
Ah, so you
education,
pay for them to go to
because
school.
yeah, yeah, because
Gotcha.
I think that's one of the reasons here in our countries why we don't progress is that there is not enough education or no education for children.
Okay.
And when we started speaking with shark fishers, we would always ask, do you want your child to be a shark fisher? And all of them said no,
Right.
we don't want them to be shark fishers.
I got to ask you, like, how was it? Because I Guatemala is like several of those Central American countries where there's really been almost nothing done on shark research for ever, if anything. And so, how was it for you not having a background in marine biology, just going in to talk to these fishers? That had to have been an interesting experience. Could you share a little bit about how that was?
Well, it was just, like at first it was kind of like one shark fisher was the only one that trusted us,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the one that gave us data. And so when we had to do, for example, scientific long lines, we would hire him. We would just give him all the props in the world for helping us out, and then little by little, that was like, oh, I want the same thing as he does.
Hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we started with, I think at that point it was seven boats that gave us information. And the fishers were very happy because we always talk to them about management, but we talk to them about management more in regards of, do you want to have food for the rest of your life, or do you just want to, you know kill your food source? What
Hmm.
other jobs do you guys have? And I think that was also something that made them think about uh, their children being able to have opportunities, and being able to choose what they want to be. That's the dream for everyone, for an
Of course.
economist like me.
Right.
My dream was to eventually see, work with the ocean. And I'm sure those kids have many dreams. And so actually, two of them already graduated high school, which is very,
Nice.
like, super, super, super happy for us.
Mm-hmm.
One is a woman, which I am
Nice.
super
Mm-hmm.
happy. She's an
Mm-hmm.
auditor. And the other one is studying business administration. And then, we had three other girls that graduated high school. Unfortunately, well, they didn't follow through. But I think it's a way where we're actually trying to help younger generations not have to go to fishing
Right.
as an economic means for their survival.
How was it being a young woman when you went into these towns and villages and stuff? Which is I assume most of the fishermen are mostly all males in there. So how was that? What was it? How was that?
Well, fortunately for me, I grew up with males all my life. I had two older brothers, that bullied me to death. When I was younger, I was a town boy, so all my friends were guys most of the time, and still to
Mm-hmm.
this day, I have more male friends than female friends. Um, so it wasn't so uncomfortable for me. And another thing that really helped me was that at some point, somebody asked me to do uh, a course for diving for two communities of shark fishers. And so, once they see you handle those tanks, then they get
Right.
respect for you.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
it,
Okay.
fishers will not have any judgment unless you look scared,
Right.
or unless
Mm-hmm.
you don't do the same work that a
Like the
male would
physical
do.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I say, were you familiar? Did you? I guess did you grow up? along the coast in Guatemala, or did you grow up inland in Guatemala? Were you familiar with some of these
No,
places that had?
I grew up in the city. I grew up
Oh,
in the
okay.
city. But my mom was a fan of the ocean, and
Mm-hmm.
so every time she had a chance, she would bring us to Belize,
Oh,
and
okay.
we would
Ah.
do snorkeling in Belize. And
Mm-hmm.
back in the day when you could, just dive and grab a conch and eat it right there, and it
Mm-mm.
was back when that whole coral barrier, you couldn't go through it. You had to go all around it. There wasn't anywhere. It
Mm-hmm.
was a beautiful experience. So yeah, so I got that from my childhood, and I've always
Okay.
been, very very happy being near the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Nice.
okay, that's
I,
awesome. Go ahead, Andrew.
yeah, I was going to ask, when you went from, real estate and property management to starting your own organization and doing what you do, and I'm sure there's other projects that you've done which we'll probably get into. Is it what you expected to get into when you want to learn about sharks, you want to protect sharks, you want to work with conservation, doing what you're doing now, working with communities and providing scholarships for education, was that what you expected, that was the means that you would have to go about getting sharks, learning more about sharks in Guatemala and protecting them? Was that what you expected when you first started, or did it change?
Mm, no, no, no. At first, I was a tree hugger. Don't kill anything, and watch out for that bee and that ant, and
Yeah.
like, oh, the poor sharks, and But then once you come to these communities and you realize their living standards, the conditions in which they live, um, putting yourself 3 seconds in their shoes and saying, this is their livelihood, this is
Right.
where they eat from.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, for me, it's become now more of a, I need to take care of those communities in order
Mm-hmm.
to take care of the sharks.